Well, things are getting back to normal at champion trainer Gary Hall Senior's Serpentine establishment with the return on Sunday from New Zealand of the champion pacer Chicago Bull, Australia's greatest pacer. And how's he settled back in, Gary?
Yeah, I'd like to think he's Australia's greatest pacer, but there's a lot of people over the east that don't think so, but he's come back really well. We're happy with him. He's lost a bit of weight and, but he's showing no signs of soreness at the moment. He can get his head down to eat now, which he couldn't do before. And he travelled good, so we're just going to fatten him up and get a bit of weight on him and then put him into work in about 2 to 3 months and see if he's okay.
Tell us a bit about, even though you weren't there at the time, how the accident happened. Around about a month ago, wasn't it?
27th of November, and after he'd won on the 26th of November on the Friday night, Saturday morning we were giving him some fluids for Darrow solution that we give them after a real hard run when they travel. And because he nicked his shin when he galloped at the start there, the vets decided to give him a bit of Dex, just anti-inflammatory to keep it down. Probably should have given him Bute, but they gave him dexamethasone, and the vet did it, put the bag of fluids into him intravenously, and unfortunately he had an anaphylactic shock when they put the Dex straight into the jugular. Might have gone in too quick, I don't know, I wasn't there. And the vet said he's never had it happen to him before, but he had the anaphylactic shock, flipped over backwards, landed on his swither, and crushed all his wither, the 8 bones across here, fractured all of them and displaced 2 of them. So, there's not a lot of injuries, not a lot documented on that sort of injury, and it's because it's pretty rare. So we don't know what the prognosis is and what's going to happen to him when we start working him again. So
would have been quite a shock for the horse to flip over like that and then receive these injuries. Would have they been fairly painful?
Oh, yeah, fracture 8 bones, I think it's pretty painful, but I think it was a bigger shock for Junior because, the horse had gone so well on the Friday night and, proved that he was right up to New Zealand Cup class, and everyone was talking about him, and he'd shortened into favouritism for the New Zealand Cup, and then for that to happen, it's horse racing, I suppose, but you got to put up with those things, but it was very disappointing at the time. I've got over it nearly now.
He seems to have settled in beautifully back here. His spirits seem to be good.
Yeah, he's settled in real good, and he's happy. He's happy doing no work anyway, I know that, but we need to feed him up a bit. He's lost a fair bit of condition, but we purposely didn't feed him up over there because we didn't want him running around. So,
Gary, just over 3 years ago, your stable client and yourself bought this wonderful horse, and what were your first impressions, particularly when he arrived, and then also when you took him to the Byford trials for his first trial for you?
Well, when he first arrived here, he was even smaller than he is now, and we had to see the head collars don't fit him because he's too small. He's got that smaller head and that, and I really thought they'd given me the wrong horse. I thought it was a yearling or something. I said, "You sure this is Chicago Bull?" And they said, "Yeah." And it was he's the smallest horse I've ever had by far. Quinny was small, but he's another level.
He's what, 13.5 hands?
Yeah, around 13.5 hands. Yeah. So so I jogged him on the hard track, and he cross-fired and jumped out of his gear 2 or 3 times. And I thought, I'm going to spell this horse. So I let him grow up a bit. So I spelled him, brought him back as a 3-year-old. And he was working quite good, and we took him to trials, and I think he tailed off about 100 metres, didn't he?
He got beaten, I think it was about 80 lengths or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember Mary Catherine won the trial.
Yeah.
Gary Jr. drove Mary Catherine. Better Bling, Cullen Savalco ran second, and Chicago Bull was half a lap behind them in third place. What your feelings must have been quite unusual.
I was a bit worried about him because he used to cross-fire a bit and jump out of his gear, so Clint drove him. I told him just look after him. I think he took me too literally. But anyway, after that he worked really good at home, and we started him first up, and I think he ran third Del Jacko, and it was an enormous run, and then we really knew we had something special. So.
Something special. He's earned more than $1.6 million. He's had 61 starts for 40 wins. He's had about 40 starts at Gloucester Park for 34 wins. So he's got a phenomenal record. And Gary, I suggest that this horse would have bolted in the Inter-Dominion Championship in Melbourne, because looking at the first couple of sets of heats, he's vastly superior to those horses who are running around the Inter-Dominion at the moment.
Yeah, well, yeah, you say that, but Tiger Tara did give him a toweling up in the Victoria Cup, and but it led over the short distance at Melton, and Bully wasn't 100% then. That was his first trip, first time away, and you know he got better as the trip went on, and he proved that in at Auckland. But yeah, I'm sure he would have been right up there. He probably would have been one of the favourites for sure.
I'm sure he would have been. And Gary, you've trained 11 WA Pacing Cup winners, including this fella, and this season, no Chicago Bull in the Fremantle Cup or the Pacing Cup. What are your hopes going to rely on to win your 12th WA Pacing Cup?
I might have to wait till 2020, Ken. But this year I just hope I can back the winner of the Pacing Cup.
And so for the next few weeks and few months, the champ is just going to relax around here at your lovely property?
Yep. He'll just be relaxing, doing nothing and looking after him. And, you know, if you know, I'd hate to say it, but if he never races again, it's, you know, he's done a good enough job, you know, I think. And but I'm sure he will. We're pretty confident, looking at all the signs we've got here, that he will make a recovery.
And it's wonderful to see him back. And he's such a quiet horse, and he's so well mannered. There's nothing wrong with this horse in his makeup at all.
No, not a thing. He's fast, he's tough, and he's easy to handle, as you can see. So, perfect horse. I need another one.
So, Gary, all the best with the recuperation of Champion Chicago Bull.
Thanks very much, Ken. Thank you.